Welcome to Inspired Aspirations. My name is Gretchen Ehrlichman, and I am joined here by Philip Baker. Say hi, Philip.
Hi, Philip.
And today we are talking about discerning Dominican vocations. So we decided that because both of us are discerning vocations with the Dominican Order, that we would talk a little bit about what specifically attracted us to Dominican spirituality and to vocations within the Dominican Order. So Philip, could you tell us a little bit about your experience of this discernment process?
Yeah, well, first I'm struck by, there was something you said last time about how, we're kind of pulled through our desires and God gives us these desires for a reason. And as much as those need to be verified and refined, but also he pulls us through them. And that he calls us specifically, it's not just like to religious life generally, but like, no, like I want you to be like a Benedictine or Dominican or, what have you. So with me, what drew me to the Dominican Order was when I was young, I heard the story of Saint Dominic. When he was at university, there was a plague, and I think it was Palencia, and he sold his books, so he had money to go and pay for food so he could feed the poor. And as someone who loves books, that was a really that story always stuck with me. And then as I got older, I was introduced to the writings of St. Thomas Aquinas, and the insight and the wisdom in how he wrote, and clearly a wisdom that was given by God. There was something about that. Because I think sometimes we can get caught up in this idea that I can't know God. There's just this kind of distance between, and we can't know everything about him, but there are some things that he allows us to know about him. And so that idea that I think permeates Dominican life, that we can come to know something about God, through our search for truth, and then share that with others, and that our search for truth is a search for God, so that there's that kind of seeker's heart that we'll seek and we'll find, but we will never possess a full understanding of him. But that search leads us to a greater love of him. There is something about that was, really appealing to me, and also the fact that I honestly think part of the reason that I've stayed Catholic all 22 years of my life is because of Catholic education I received and people explaining the beautiful truths of the faith. And I think that is something that is kind of important in Dominican life, is coming to understand our faith, because our faith is our relationship with God.
Yeah. I think for me, in a similar way, it was kind of this seeking that originally drew me to Dominican spirituality. And I think it was in hearing kind of the preaching of Dominican friars, in which I was kind of drawn back with a new fire to the faith as an adult. And it was in this studying the faith that I really just realized kind of my hunger and thirst for spiritual things. And I just wanted to learn more and know more and become closer to Christ through this type of studying. So I think it's the Dominican charism of study, and then the relationship between faith and reason, I think really kind of drove my interest to dive into my faith in just a deeper way as an adult. And I think it's also this kind of study of faith and reason where you form your mind, you become formed as an individual from these things, that I see manifest in Dominicans, like in the nuns, in the sisters, in the friars, that it's by studying you are formed as a person, and that you become more yourself, because you become more an individual, and that brings you immense freedom, and you grow as yourself in the spiritual life. And I think that I found that to be incredibly kind of informative to me, and as I started to discern different orders and different spiritualities and things like that, as I was trying to figure out where is God calling me, what am I supposed to do. And I think also the Dominican idea that we contemplate and then we share the fruits of our contemplation, right? And this looks different for the friars than it does for the nuns. Like the friars are going to contemplate and then go out and share that with their mouth, they walk on the way and they're saving souls. But then the nuns are kind of doing that kind of intimate study of the word, intimate contemplation of the word, intimate contemplation and relationship with Christ as the center of their lives, in which they can kind of pray for the apostles of the friars, but also the salvation of souls in that kind of prayer, in that intimacy with Christ through prayer, that it fills you to the point where you're extended and overflowed into sharing it with all souls, with the body of Christ. And just this kind of hunger and thirst for the salvation of souls, I think, helps drive my attraction to Dominican charism.
And I think too, like, that was one of the things that was really appealing to me as well, was an understanding that, like, we're not, the Dominicans don't just try to learn in order to, like, accrue information for them to hoard, but that it's, all of this is for, it's preaching for the salvation of souls, that it's out of a love of God and love of others that we try and preach God to them, so that our joy might be complete.
Yeah.
And, I guess as a quick note, it's not that these things aren't present in other orders as well, but there's something kind of particular to the Dominican charism about study and about a search for truth that that drew us in a way unique to us. I think that's kind of one of the wonderful things about vocation, is that every vocation is unique, because God's made us all uniquely.
Yeah. And I think to also just think like this, as all of us follow whatever vocation we're called to, it's like doing it in charity, like doing it in complete love of God, which is then love extended to our neighbor. And I think that's something I see as an example in the Dominicans that I've had the privilege to know, and something that I just see in individuals who make it their aim and goal in life to truly follow God's will and discover, how is God calling me? How am I going to follow that? And then as I align my will with his, then I truly am able to find this love for him that spills out to others.
My cup runneth over.
Yes. All right. Well, we are just about out of time, but we want to thank you for joining us here on Inspired Aspirations. If you find this kind of slightly entertaining or maybe edifying in some way, please share it with your friends, your family, your coworkers, anybody who might enjoy it.
Other quarantined people.
Yeah, all the quarantined people. Go ahead and share it with them. And just don't forget to think Catholic, speak Catholic, and be Catholic. So I am Gretchen Ehrlichman.
And I'm Philip Baker.
And we'll see you next time on Inspired Aspirations.
Thanks.
God bless.